Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard.
And I am wrong, and you are wrong. We were both
We
we
were
were both
both
wrong.
so wrong, and this
We
is
were
episode...
both extremely wrong, and the thing is, we don't know where we started being wrong. All we know is we started being wrong, and we're very wrong.
somewhere during the first episode. Anyways,
Somewhere something went wrong,
this
and then it
is in our
stayed
ears
that
and
way.
our brains. Yeah, this is episode 216 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
We are talking about Snow series, Snow Saga.
Uh-huh.
All those little snow guys
Specifically.
and one snow girl.
Uh-huh.
So I can
Makes no mistake.
who's boss.
Nope.
Snow knows about it. Snow bros. The snow must go on.
Snow
so
Stalin.
on and snow forth.
Nope.
Snow who's boss. Makes no mistake.
We're just talking about the last one. Yeah.
We're just talking about the last one today. Makes no mistake.
As well
And
as...
you know who made a big snow mistake?
We're talking about... We're talking about that episode and the whole 2021 review.
And the 2021 review. You know who
Yes.
made a big snow mistake, Devin?
Well, at least one of us did. I mean, technically both of us did.
I was gonna say Jules, but I guess we also did too. We went in different
soon.
directions.
Too soon. Yeah, I mean, technically both of us did, but possibly one of us more than the other. As soon as
But we don't know who, so leave it in the comments below who you think was more wrong.
As soon as we finished this episode, and we both knew we'd finished it, we were both like, so what happened there? Because up to this point, we were... Okay, so this
We
is...
were so sure.
We were 100% sure that they said
we
it
didn't
was
know who it was, but we were
boy.
sure it was a guy.
They said it was a young boy, a young
But
guy.
the thing is, they said minor, because Devin
I
went
went
back
back.
and checked.
I went back and checked because we listened to this episode, and I was like, it's weird because it seems like it's going to be Jules. And then it was Jules, and I was like, what did they say?
I was like, either it is Jules and we were both wrong, or something horrible is about to also happen to someone else.
So yeah, it was like, and then another person got hurt.
And
so
then another random person fell off the roof.
We both finished the episode, and we were like, so are we both insane, or like what happened there? Because
So what happened is we were hanging out, not anything Odyssey related.
What happened
but there
is we're
had to
both
be
stupid.
a moment where I asked if you listened to the episodes, and you were like, yeah, and I just paused and I said, what happened? And you just said, I don't know.
I don't know where we got the idea that they specified that. I think when we talked about the episode, I asked you, I was like, I forget, did they specify the gender? And you said, I'm pretty sure they said he at some point. I'm
Did
remembering
I say that?
I'm
Was it
remembering
me?
that now from our review.
Was it me? Oh no.
Well, here's the thing. I already thought they said it was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
We both of us thought it was a boy, but then I was like, during the review, I was like, wait a minute. Did they say that, or am I falsely remembering that? And you're like, I'm pretty sure they said he at some point. I'm remembering that now from the review.
The
when I
worst part
edited it.
is I don't think I was actually like playing anything, and I know I was listening to the episode in my room.
Uh-huh.
So I have like no excuse. I might have been playing Animal Crossing,
point
but
is-
even then, that's no excuse.
The point is, we both got heavily plot twisted by the fact that we're both
we got
very
so heavily plot
bad
twisted
at
by the fact that we
listening
just
comprehension.
didn't understand.
We don't understand words and talking. So as you guys have been aware,
we got screwed over by the fact that neither of us speak English.
we were like, ooh, is it going to be Wyatt or Jay who gets hurt? Because they
Or
said it's...
Buck.
Well, we didn't think Buck because he hadn't showed up at this point.
Well, me at the beginning of the episode,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
but
oh no.
in the previous
Buck, he's
episodes,
already going through so much
everything-
in his multi-parter.
Everything everyone has heard up to now in the previous 3 episodes, we were like, which one's it going to be? Because Wyatt has disappeared and we don't know where he is, but Jay's also on this trip and he's on the cover of this episode, jumping off the roof of something or something.
Even after the episode was done and you and me were talking about stuff, you're like, but why was Jay on the cover? And I was like, that was Buck.
No, I knew it was Buck at that point, but I was like, it looks like Jay. It does not look like Buck.
I remember you mentioning still the fact that you thought it looked like Buck.
Yeah, I do still now think it looks like Jay. but I
can't
acknowledge the
look
fact
up
it's not
the-
supposed to be.
Oh, you were asking about like the angle that he was at, because it looked like he was lying down on something, and I said he was leaping through the air, and it was like an undershot of him
I see. Okay.
in the sky.
Anyways, we were both very confused when Jules got hurt. Because we went back and listened, and it turns out what happened was Dr. Calhoun said a minor came in with a traumatic brain injury. Anyway, so what happens in this episode, Victoria?
Jules gets rocked.
Jules gets oomphed.
Jules gets arrowed. We'll be right back. So Jules and Buck are in Odyssey High, I guess. So they don't go to the elementary school. They're in the library.
Or the middle school. You're correct.
Or the middle school. They are in the library working on like a project or whatever. For some reason, because the school
intensely that anyone has ever worked on a project before.
The school's closed. They didn't realize. They get locked in, and they can't get out, and they're also snowed in. So they start hijinksing. They start like just doing all this crazy stuff inside.
Yeah.
Eating gross food monstrosities that they made in the cafeteria, sliding down the hallways,
playing mop bucket bowling.
Playing hide and seek.
The mop bucket bowling made me think of
during the hide and seek game, getting locked out of the school as the door closes on them on the roof, trying to parkour off the roof, getting serious bodily harm and brain damage, getting rushed to the hospital, having Connie crying over Jules's unconscious body because she thinks she's gonna die, and Jules getting brain surgery, and Jules surviving, and me staring into my mirror, sitting across from my bed, traumatized for 5 minutes straight.
When they played mop bucket bowling, it made me think of the bullpen office chair cold open to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where Jake's like rolling across, and then the elevator opens with Holt, and he like flies into the elevator on the chair.
If you are a dedicated listener to the podcast, you'll know that in the last episode we talked about Connie having a tracker in Jules's phone, something that we predicted for a different episode. Well, something that I predicted for a different episode and turned out to be canon in this one. And not applicable as, well, maybe not. Haven't finished that last part.
Yeah.
Yet, but and Jules, like Connie tries to track down Jules. Wooten and Whit are trying to and Wilson are trying to track down people who are missing. They're trying to track down Wyatt. Wyatt is looking for human contact.
Wilson wasn't with them. I assume he stayed with the kids on the bus, probably.
Okay, yeah. Wyatt's looking for first human contact in Odyssey. Buck is doing his best. Jules is also doing her best, but unfortunately her best is not on the same tier as Buck's best when it comes to parkour. And she smashed her head open on the corner of a garbage can as she parkoured off the roof. She had to get a hole drilled in her head.
3.
She had the episode opens theme. And it's like the cold, not even a cold open. It's like the parental warning.
Yeah, literally.
And I really felt it in my bones.
The episode started and it was a parental warning, and I was like, "Uh-oh, sisters."
I heard that parental warning, and I was like, "Whoa, here we go." And then I heard Buck's voice, and I said, "No, please."
Yeah, the parental warning. We knew someone was gonna get hurt, but the parental warning started, and I was like, "Haha, I'm in danger."
That was me the entire time that they were. I was so stressed when they were doing the parkour off the roof the entire time, and then Buck made it down safely, and I was just like, is he gonna slip on like a snow patch? Like he does all that, and then he just slips on the ground and hits his head.
It's like that story about how the first guy who survived going over Niagara Falls in a barrel later died because he slipped on an orange peel. That's what that would have been.
It's like that TikTok where the guy slips on an orange peel, or he slips on a banana peel, and then he does a backflip, and then he like collapses into a bunch of trash cans because he's not looking where he's going.
Yeah. So the episode starts, and then it's like Buck and Jules, and I was like, okay, really
I was like, we have so many balls up in the air already.
Yeah, I was
from
like,
the other parts. There's so much going on.
Was not expecting that. Yeah, I was like...
It was basically my same reaction when I realized what the next like bit of Kingdom Hearts has in store, where I was like, we already have so many characters, and where I was like, what if we introduce a new universe of characters? And I was like, stop, there's already so much going on.
I was like, I really felt like there was already enough going on, first off, for this last one. I wasn't expecting a whole new sub-arc with characters who hadn't even appeared yet, and obviously this is like brand new, like, now who's gonna get hurt?
Because that's also, like something we said last time, where like, there's so many people, like surely nothing else is going to get added.
Yeah, and then also, I was like, it's also not that common just for Jules and Buck to show up in club episodes, period. Like, it's relatively rare.
And also, I think one of the things I said to you when we had our talk before,
I think I looked it up,
was like, could you imagine if they killed Jules in a club episode?
I checked, I think Jules, when I checked, has only been in one club episode before this ever. Like, for context. Which was the one where she was, like, fighting with Valerie, and Connie's old friend came back to town who had a crush on Jeff.
Yeah, that's honestly kind of weird, but also understandable.
Yeah, because it's like, for, like, the super main characters, we usually only bring them in for, like, the important stuff. Unless it's people who are...
Jules and Buck are kind of low-key...
They're the headliners.
The main characters of Odyssey at the moment.
In terms of, like, active story arcs, yeah. And apart from that, it's like, we only bring in people who are main people if they're like, oh, well, it's because they're in, like, every episode. Like Connie and Eugene. Which,
like, Eugene, or Katie and Will, last time we talked to them, I get, like, the whole comment on, like, it's weird that Connie and Eugene don't have, like, as big story parts anymore, and they're more supporting characters, but it's because, like, their kids are now the main focus.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, if anyone out there has not been continually keeping up with Tell You Later, I would highly suggest it, because it is still very good, and it is, in case anyone was wondering, it is still being made without Will, and Katie has been having on different guests and stuff. One of the main people she's been having on a bunch is Chris Anthony, who is an absolute hoot and holler. And yesterday I was listening to the latest episode where Chris told the story of how she met her husband, Jerry. And it was extremely funny and insane, where she was a waitress at a restaurant and he was the performer, and she basically...
Wait, it's literally Bernard Maud.
She basically... He was, like, the performer, the musician, and she, like, called him out and was like, hey, let me sing.
She heckled him?
Well, like, she was like, let me sing and stuff, and she just started, like, arguing with him to let her perform instead of him, like, in the middle of her performance, until he was finally like, okay, if you're so good, then come up here, I guess. And then she got up there, and then she started singing, like, I'm a Little Teapot. It was a really wild story, and knowing that it was like, oh yeah.
And then he was watching, he was like, I can't not marry her.
Yeah, knowing that, like, and now they've been married for 17 years.
Honestly.
It was a really crazy story.
Iconic behavior.
It was like, I can't believe you did that. Chris is very funny, and Katie obviously is great, as always, and everyone should keep on watching Tell You Later, is the point. Anyways, Buck and Jules. They are at the school. It was like the first 5 minutes of the episode, we've only heard from Buck and Jules. And I was like, this is really not where I was expecting this episode to be going.
If this happened in the actual albums, I would really want there to be a moment where Bridget and Jules can just, like, come together and help each other heal through their trauma. But, like, because this is a club episode, I don't think that'll ever happen.
Probably not.
Which
So yeah,
hurts
like you said,
me.
they got trapped in the school by like the most crazy set of circumstances.
I don't even remember how they got trapped.
Well, they were studying really hard in the library, and they were in a study room, and it was only them, and apparently this is the one study room where the intercom doesn't work. So,
Okay.
I
got locked in the library once. I wasn't locked in. There was a way to get out, but like I was the only person in the building on
Clearly,
campus.
the school had been open earlier that day, and they went into the library, and they worked for a really long time, and at some point, they were like, hey, we're closing down the school because the apocalypse is happening, and everyone left, and they locked the doors and everything, but the lights were still on in the room, and they never heard the announcement, and no one came to knock on the door because it was like the farthest one away. So,
have I told that story on the Oddcast before?
Getting lost in the library? I don't think I know that story.
I didn't really get locked in. Because like there was one single door in the building that was like still openable from the inside, so I could leave. But like the rest of the doors were locked, and it was on UBC campus. And it was in like...
I was picturing this being at school.
No, I think it was like in Irving No, it wasn't in Irving. I don't remember what library I was in. But like I was on one of the upper floors of the library, and I was sitting at like my own little like cubicle kind of thing. And it was when I was writing my Beauty and the Beast essay, I think.
This is ringing like a 2% bell in
my
head.
I think I've told you this story before.
Yeah, but it's like ringing only like the faintest recollection.
But like the reason why I was studying so hard at that place is because it was like a rare book that I was using. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't like take it away from the campus for more than 2 days before bringing it back. And also like I wanted to do the majority of my work just like in a place where I was sure the book would be safe.
Yeah.
So like nothing bad would happen to it, because this book was like crazy expensive if something bad did happen to it. And so like at one point this guy came around like through all the different cubicles, just like did a little U around the room, and he was like ringing this bell. And I thought it was like there was an event happening outside.
Bring out your books.
And he was just basically ringing a bell because he was just like, everyone come to my thing. Come to my little show outside. And so I didn't leave. In retrospect, I'm like 98% sure that was like a 15 minutes to go before the building closes kind of thing. And I was like so focused on like my essay writing and stuff that I didn't realize, and also like I had like the walls around me on like the little desk I was at, that I was like the only person left on the floor and also in the building. And so then like after maybe an hour of being alone or something like that, I don't even know how long, I like picked up all my stuff, and then when I stood I kind of looked around, I was like, oh, I guess no one else is here, huh, okay. And then I like went downstairs, and like all the walls in the stairwell are glass, and so then as soon as I like, and they were doing construction, so like there were glass walls in the room I was in that faced towards like the main part of the building, but they all had like white paper over them, so I like couldn't see any of them. So by the time I like made it down to the stairwell where there wasn't any white paper, I saw that like on the main floor all the lights were off. And the only source of light was just like the light coming in through like the glass doors at the front of the building. And I was just like, oh no, I'm gonna get arrested. Because they're gonna think I stayed late.
I definitely would have been concerned, because it's like, there's silent alarms and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be caught on camera. There's gonna be like a janitor that sees me. I'm gonna like get caught by like some people. They're gonna think I was here like to purposely steal from them, because this is where they keep a lot of like rare books.
Well, exactly,
and I could
right?
Easily like go over there and take some.
I'm sure there's like infrared like alarms in the corner where if you like you walk by somewhere and it's gonna set it off. And
yeah, and then also I think I had like one granola bar left in my bag, and I like hadn't eaten it a bit, and so I like got to the bottom of the stairs, and then there's like a set of like 4 doors or something like that, and then like a handicap access door kind of. And I like pushed on them, and I like pulled on them, and they were all locked. And I was just like, I'm gonna be locked in here all night. I'm gonna have to text Devin and just tell him that just like this is my new home now.
For me to come break you out of the library. They're gonna find me in the
morning, just like so scared. I don't have like a phone charger. I'm so screwed. Yeah. And then I tried like the door on the very far end and that door, like, let me out. And I was just like, oh, thank God. It's like, that was one of the most stressful moments I had while I was enrolled at UBC.
Yeah, I mean, that would
sucked.
be, like, pretty stressful. And like you said, it's not just, like, getting trapped in a random, like, building of classrooms. It's, like, in the library, and you're in, like, the rare book section, so...
Yeah, it was not great.
So, they get trapped in the school, and they do all sorts of goof-em-ups and shenanigans and stuff. And I love how Connie phones, and she was like, where are you, Jules? What are you doing? She's like, I'm at school. And Connie is like, dude.
Connie's like, why are you there? She's like, oh, we got locked in the library. It closed and we didn't notice. And Connie's like, how do you get locked in a library?
Well, no,
no one
she was
notices.
like-
And I'm just listening to the episode and I'm just like, I did
Connie
not
was like, where are you? And Jules is like, we're at school. And she was like, try again. Terrible lie. Liar.
But yeah, you know that Vine where it's like, haha, I do that. That was, that was me.
Yeah, Connie's like, there's no way you could have gotten locked in the library without noticing like that. And she was like...
I was like, yeah, what kind of loser would get accidentally locked in a library on a campus and not realize?
Jules does validly point out, like, we are fine, like, you know, we have the stuff that we need here, so it'll be more dangerous for you to come for us than for us to just wait here, because we're not going to, like, starve to death or anything. So, like, don't worry, we're good, we can figure it out. And then they get into shenanigans and stuff. And then we cut to Wit and Wooten trying to figure out what happened to Wyatt. And they point out, like, oh, he did have MREs with him, so he does at least have food with him. And I was like, okay, that's very good. And I do know some MREs contain, like equipment to heat the food, like a hand-warming pack, but, like, warmer.
What does MREs stand for again?
It's like the military rations. What is it, made ready to eat? But they're like, you know, like where it's just like the gray, like silver foil bags. And
they got that freeze-dried astronaut ice cream.
Yes, is something that is in there sometimes. But I saw a RT stream for Bleepface, and Jeff made like some MRE meals once, and some of them, like, they get you to cook the food by like using an external heating element, but some of them have like an active thing, like I said, like an ice pack, but like a hand warming pack, but like really hot, where you like break it and then it gets super hot and you use that to like cook the food. So it's good. I was like, some of those have that kind of thing in there, so Wyatt, you know, might have something that he could like heat a shelter with. You wouldn't be able to touch it because it's like too hot for that, but you could like, you know, like tent your coat around it and like contain the heat or something like that, or if you could like, you know, kind of dig yourself a little igloo or a tree well or something like that.
How do hand warmers work? I know it's like a chemical reaction.
Yeah, it's the same as an ice pack,
the same deal as glow
backwards.
sticks.
Exactly. It's just chemicals, and they have like, they're separated in there by something that breaks when you pop it or whatever, and it's an exothermic reaction, so it gets really hot when
whenever
they're
I
mixed together.
have one, I'm always like, should I be worried about the fact that I'm holding like a tiny little reactor that's getting actively hotter in my hands?
Reactor. It's not radioactive.
It's reacting to it.
Everything's reacting, Victoria.
Shut up. That's true. But
yeah, it's just same as an ice
hand?
pack. There was chocolate from the granola bar. I noticed on my hand.
What?
I ate a granola bar before we started. I was like, oh, it's chocolate on my hand.
Hold on, let me lick my hand.
I was hoping you wouldn't notice.
How would I not notice?
I don't know. I was thinking
I'm
about...
having a conversation with you, looking directly at you, and you're like, huh?
I was thinking about chemistry.
Let me just think about chemistry as I lick my hand.
Look, the point is, I was brought some solace by the fact that Wyatt might have some kind of heating source with him, because it's like day after tomorrow cold, I assume, based on how bad the storm has gotten very fast. And then, so Buck and Jules play hide and seek, and then Jules hides outside on the roof, and Buck sees the door open. He was like, surely she wouldn't do something so foolish as to do this. And
when he went outside, I was just like, please tell me they're not going to get locked outside. Like, that was my first
thought.
As
soon as he walked out, I was like, that door's not opening from the outside.
Like, that door is
like,
closing on them.
Obviously, that door is going to lock. And then they closed, and then it locked, and they were trapped outside. and they were like, I don't have my phones, because they didn't bring it with them for some unexplainable reason. Why would you're teenagers? Keep your phone in your pocket. Stupid.
Also, like, when you're playing hide and seek in a place which I'm assuming all the lights are off in the school.
Yeah, you need a light
Like,
to see. It could be dangerous.
Me
What if you hurt
personally,
yourself?
whenever I play hide and go seek, I usually hide in a really dark place, because then people are less likely to spot me. And because of that, during the counting hiding process, I need to make sure my phone's flashlight is on so I don't like fall and hurt myself or something like that.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe they would add Buck as yet another candidate to be traumatically injured, which is very funny in retrospect. I was like, I feel like Wilson right now watching over Olivia, Emily, and Zoe and being like, who's it going to be? I was just trying to protect all of them.
I was listening to this podcast the other day, like that new musical podcast that I've been
listening
listening
not this
to.
Podcast.
No. And they were doing like a story about like that happened on a ski hill, and they kept on naming all these like ridiculously dangerous like hypothetical ski slope names in their story, and it just reminded me of when I was doing that for like every single one that Emily went on. In our multi-parter.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
So they're still trapped on the roof, and then Wyatt comes along, and I was like, boy, I sure hope this isn't supposed to be Buck on the episode art, because it really looks like Jay and doesn't look like Buck, and I maintain that to this day. And Wyatt, they flag Wyatt over, and he's like, you guys can parkour down here, and they're like, parkour? What is that? And he was like, parkour.
You know that thing from the hit Barbie movie, Fashion Fairy Tale, that the ant does?
I thought you were going to say from Barbie and the Three Musketeers when they like do
also Barbie and the Three Musketeers, but like she specifically says parkour. Like as a new and upcoming thing in that movie.
I forgot about that part, yes.
I'm so happy that we have our Barbie marathon, so I can make these deep cut references, and you will understand them.
Yeah, at first I was like already weirded out that they were like, the Buck and Jules are supposed to not know what parkour is. I was like, okay, I mean, sometimes, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, I'll explain it for the kids in the audience, and then sometimes they'll be like, no, I don't know what that is, explain it for the kids in the audience.
It makes me surprised that like Buck's never tried parkour, because he just kind of seems like the type of person who
I mean, I'll give you this.
Would.
Parkour is like almost by definition like something for urban areas. In a big city, you need tall buildings and urban infrastructure to do parkour. Which is not the place that Buck has spent basically any of his life, is in like big cities and urban areas.
Yeah, but his dad's Eugene.
You're
telling me his dad, Eugene, hold this chainsaw closer to your face, Meltzner, has never taught or discussed parkour with Buck?
But then also the fact that Wyatt is like, yeah, it's a military training technique they use to like get from one place to another without tools or assistance. And I was like, one, bad definition of what parkour is. Two, it's not like a military technique at all. It was not created by the military. It was created by the urban youths of France, which is why it's called parkour, because you get around by running.
It was created by Barbie's aunt in Fashion Fairy Tale.
It was created in Paris in very much an explicitly like anti-authority kind of like atmosphere. So it feels kind of insulting to call it like a military technique. And also absolutely bizarre to think of it as like something you would specifically train for when you're in the military, because it's not. It's like maybe there's some like very niche special forces areas where it's like, oh yeah, you should know how to move parkour like, but generally speaking, don't think a lot of soldiers on battlefields need to do a lot of parkour while they're like doing military stuff.
What's his face? Frick, I don't remember what the character's name is. This joke isn't gonna work. Jason Bourne. Like,
Exactly, right? I was like, unless they're like some crazy special ops thing, I was like, I don't think a lot of military is doing like lots of parkour stuff. But yeah, I was like, I thought that was weird all around.
but I think we should rewrite that line. Like, okay, you ask me, what is parkour?
What's that?
Have you ever heard of Batman?
There, see? Easy. And
No,
then
you do one. You do one. Hey, what's parkour?
I don't have anything funny though.
Have you
It's-
ever heard of Barbie's aunt in
Yeah.
Fastest Fairy Tale?
And they're like, yeah, but I only remember the parts with Ken because that was definitively the best part about
I only
that
remember
movie.
the parts with Ken and the parts with the glam fairies. You're like,
So Connie is like, I'm gonna get down there and rescue Jules because I have the snowmobile that belongs to Wooten and Penny that was at my house because Jillian was fixing it. And so Connie arrives, and Wooten and Wit are there, and Connie pulls up, and she's like, "This thing keeps stalling. I think there's something wrong with it." And Wooten's like, "Yeah, I think it's the driver," and was like, "Not even a blizzard of this magnitude could cool that burn." So Connie comes with the snowmobile because they're like, what are we gonna do? We need all of these things to all align so that Jules can be alive still. So it is like just about as bad as things could possibly happen. Because they're like, okay, Buck makes it down and he's fine. And then Jules goes and she tries to jump from like a pipe or something, like a roof to a dumpster. And I was like, how bad? Like, you know, if you miss it, it's like, okay, you fell an extra couple feet and you could really you could break your ankles even if you weren't expecting the extra amount of fall. But they were like, oh, she missed and she hit her head on the corner of the dumpster. Which is really bad. You shouldn't do that. People at home is my medical advice to you.
PSA.
Yeah.
Don't break your head open if you can avoid it.
Jules clearly doesn't have blood in her airway because she's still breathing. But after that kind of head trauma, there's absolutely no way that they should be moving her, especially carrying her anywhere. But they also can't keep her laying on the snow either. So they were like, what can we do? And they're like, oh, there's that piece of sheet iron. And if we can move her onto that, then we just need to be able to pull her. And then Connie has the snowmobile and Wyatt has the air horn. So like everything lines up to get her to the hospital. And Connie...
Jules is never going to go sledding again after this.
Connie is really freaking out, understandably, because they were like, our surgeon, they were like, she has swelling in her brain. The surgeon can't get here. We need to fly her out somewhere else. And Connie's like, and you won't be able to fly a helicopter in this weather, right? And they're like, no. And it's like really intense.
Did it like, I don't know about you, even though they said it was like really, really bad in the first part, this was so much worse than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it was
like the same vibe as like the OG OAC episode where it's like there was blood
like
coming out of
their eyes and ears
or whatever.
Yeah,
like the same kind of thing where it's like, oh no.
Yeah, very much like that. So they're like, we need to drill some burr holes because of the pressure on the brain. And immediately I clicked the lines together, and they did point it out later, but I immediately put it together, and I didn't think they'd actually acknowledge it. Immediately I figured it out. I was like, whoever wrote this episode, they are on official notice for the cruelest irony in writing this, because at the very start of the episode, Jules said that she needed Connie tracking her through an app like she needed a hole in the head, and now they're literally giving her a burr hole, which is the modern form of trepanation, or drilling a hole in the skull to relieve pericerebral pressure.
She actually said that at the beginning. I don't remember.
And then that was like in the first 2 minutes of the episode, and they did mention this later.
Who wrote this episode?
It was Kathy.
Kathy, why would you do that?
I thought it was just like, oh, I figured this out. That's one of those
writing choices where you write that down and then you cackle to yourself.
She did. It was one of the last lines in the episode, because Jules wakes up and she's like, I guess I really do need you. Like, I need a hole in the head. And it was like one of the last little lines. So they did acknowledge it explicitly, but I figured it out like as soon as they're like, we need to give her burr holes. I was like, I know what that is. And also I remembered specifically that Jules said that line at the very beginning of the episode, and I immediately put it together and I was like, oh, Kathy.
I'm that picture where it's like the black and white picture of the person and they just have like a drink sitting at the table.
Yeah. I immediately put together and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, I mean, incredible writing choice, but also, the angst. This is
Kathy
cruel and
is the
unusual.
queen of irony, if there's anything we've learned between this and the Buck 3-parter.
They were like, we can't get him there. And then they're like, miraculously, Dr. Calhoun, he made it in here with his family. And I was like, and now you know the rest of the story. I'm really glad that I was 1,000% right about like the latter 3 episodes of this arc being separate stories that all chain together previous events from the first one, like but set before it, and then that would lead up towards us learning who was the person who was traumatically injured.
I'm
and
glad
you were
that
correct
I
about,
was right about the time of the announcement and placing where all the episodes were.
Yeah, it appeared in every other episode. You nailed that 100% with your prediction there.
Every single time that came up, like, in an episode, I was always just like, yes, vindication.
Yeah. The web documentary was entirely about parkour. It opened with Bob, and he was standing beside...
Odd choice, but okay.
Opened with Bob, and he was standing beside this guy, and I was like, why does he look so familiar? And then I was like, oh yeah,
it's Tony Hawk.
It's Jesse, the new writer and apprentice for AIO, who I met when I was at Focus. And I learned from the web quest, as I mentioned before, that Carol...
Your audio just completely cut out for me. Can you repeat who that was?
I learned from the web quest that Carol Mansell... Jesse, the new writer and apprentice for Focus that I met when I was there.
Yeah.
Writer and apprentice for AIO.
Why don't you? What's up?
Anyways, the web quest, I learned that Carol Mansell, who is the voice of Eleanor Wise, was one of the VFD Village town elders in the Netflix series of Unfortunate Events in the episodes for Book 7 and I assume the very beginning of Book 8.
Another character who goes in the series of Unfortunate Events, jail for all the VFD members.
I was looking through her IMDb. She's played, like, over the last, 30, 40 years, she's played, at least some small bit role or single appearance on, every famous, what's the word, syndicated TV show. It seemed like looking through the list.
What does syndicated mean again?
Ones that the network is picked up to do forever. I'm talking about Seinfeld and Family Matters and All in the House and just every family sitcom and other just TV show from the 80s and 90s, That 70s Show, and it was every one of those shows from those decades. Third Rock from the Sun. Every single one of them, she was in at least one episode.
Which one's the one with Tina Fey?
30 Rock.
I've seen the first episode and a half of that.
Yes, I remember being very confused when you
I couldn't get into it.
Swapped talking about Third Rock from the Sun and 30 Rock.
One of them has an alien, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, because 30 Rock...
Also, whenever I hear that 70s show, I'm like, yes, the one with the alien. And then you're like, Third Rock from the Sun. I'm like, yes, the one with Tina Fey.
30, number 30 Rockefeller Place or Rockefeller Avenue or whatever is the address
you've explained
is the address of the building where NBC is headquartered.
This sounds familiar.
Yes. Whereas Third Rock from the Sun is the planet that Earth is in the solar system.
That's the alien one.
Yes.
What about that 70s show? I know we've had this conversation
I don't know what that
before.
70s show has to do with it. I didn't know for a really long time that it was a show from the 90s, and it was supposed to be it's a parody of
I was
what
gonna
things
ask
were
what
like.
decade it was from.
I didn't know this for a very long time, that it's it was a show made in the late 90s, and it was a parody of what shows were in the 70s. But I learned it from a post that pointed out that at this point people would think, as I did until reading that post, that it came out so long ago at this point that you wouldn't realize that it was a parody of like stuff from way earlier than it, because it's old enough now that like the line is blurred for people our age.
I guess it would be pretty weird to have a show currently coming out that's like that 2020 show.
Exactly, yeah. They were like, it's akin to like Stranger Things, where it's like,
yeah,
it's like,
well, I was
like
going to make a comment on the 30-year cycle, but if it came out in the 90s, then it's not really the 30-year cycle.
I always thought it was the 90s, but like the credit for her on that 70s show was from like 1999, so it was almost like the 2000s. So
I guess that kind of falls into the 30-year cycle.
It's brushing up against 30 years.
Yeah. I've explained the 30-year cycle to you before, right?
Probably. I mean, I can infer what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like how last decade the 80s were really popular, and now it's like the 90s are popular-ish. As popular as the 90s deserve to be and could possibly be.
Okay. So, that is the end of the whole Snow quadrilogy, the Snow tetralogy. The Snow tetralogy of Fallow. So Jules was our rosebud in the end. And
Jules had to get pulled on Rosebud to
exactly. Yeah, I was
hospice.
Like some kind of sled based comparison. Yeah, she got real messed up.
She got wrecked. To put it kindly.
The parental warning did not prepare me for how critically Jules would be injured.
Nope. Me neither.
They were like, yeah, we had...
Like, I know they gave the warning, like, in the first episode that was just like, this kid is on life support, basically. But, like, I thought they would do, like, a kind of thing where they're like, we're just going to allude that, like, to this character being in grievous harm and not really go into specific detail about it. And they went into, like, a lot more detail than I expected. Like, I felt a little bit sick when they talked about certain things.
Yes, I know that. Yeah, it was very intense, and Connie's performance like really just nailed home like how dire
Katie Lee shattered my heart.
How
She's like
dire
crying,
the situation
and I was
was.
like flashing back to like Jules and Buck like sliding on their socks in the hallway and like feeding each other gross food, and I was like, what was the tonal shift between the first like third of this episode?
I was so confused when this episode started, and I was like, can you do that? Can you just be like, and here's Buck and Jules now, they're also here. I was like, isn't there already enough going on? So yeah, I really like just the concept of this whole little mini series, and the way that they like structured the timeline like that, to stitch everything together after giving us the outline, and then seeing how it all came together, and then seeing how the original like wrapped up the end when we got to the end and stuff like that. It was really cool the way that they like lined everything up to come together.
I think it's neat that all the different parts were written by different people. And as someone who doesn't really care for these kinds of multi-parters that just like cross over in minor ways, I did like this. This was probably like one of the best done versions of that I've come across. I think they did a good job with it. I think something that like elevates it in comparison to a lot of other stories that work this way is that they did have like the epilogue at the end, because sometimes stories like this can have the bad habit of just like immediately ending as soon as like the stories line up again.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now you see what happened, goodbye, because we already resolved it at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly, because that also lines up with the habit of one of the episodes sometimes in stories like this just being complete filler. So there's no point in prolonging things. Yeah, I
liked that, like, I predicted that we were going to find it out, like, you know, what happened and who got hurt and stuff. I liked that even though each of the episodes was different, they all contributed to the end thing. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to see some other stuff and then eventually we'll see the thing that plays into here. It's like they were all different things, but they all still built together towards the end. None of them were irrelevant.
Like, the first one has, like, these huge stakes of, like, this kid's gonna die if we don't get to the hospital. And then the third one is just, like, these kids are gonna die of, like, cold or carbon monoxide poisoning and why it's missing. And the fourth one is, like, Jules is gonna die.
Yeah.
And then the second one, Wilson's just like, Wit, I'm going to make your day so bad. I'm gonna ruin your day. And Wit's like, not if I ruin your day first, Kara.
That's true.
Which, again, like, it does still have, like, that thing at the end. It's like, these kids are missing. But, like, in comparison to the other ones, where it's like, everyone is dying.
I didn't think about the fact that
I'm going to make your day suck so bad.
It is the only one out of the 4 that doesn't have life or death stakes involved in it.
Which is, it makes it even funnier to me. Because if you want to say, like, argue that every episode has life or death stakes on the same level, it's like, this is literally the most, like,
Wilson
intense
being like,
thing.
You need to air out all the mean things you did to me as a kid in front of these children.
Wilson and Whit are like, I would rather die than lose to you.
Yeah.
Like, for them, this is the life or death stakes. It's really funny.
I love Whit's relationship with Tom, and I love Whit's relationship with Jack, but there is something about his relationship with Wilson that
hits different. It's the bullying factor,
particularly unique, because Whit does not. It's the only relationship Whit has where they literally actually bully each other.
You know what it is?
Even still as adults.
The difference is, if you compare, like, Whit to Tom or Jack or Bernard, or, like, any of those guys, it's like, I chose you to be my family because I love you so much. And with Wilson, it's like, I didn't have a choice in this.
Yeah, I got stuck with you.
This happened without my approval, and I don't want this.
Well, because I was going to say, it's like a sibling energy is what they have with each other.
It's the sibling energy, because, like, with the others,
he's
it's like
literally his
family.
brother-in-law. Yeah.
And with the others, it's the sibling energy of it's like, I didn't choose you, and now I'm stuck with you, and I have no say.
Because even before you brought up the comparisons to the other ones, I was going to say that energy of, like, you're in your 90s, but you're still like, yeah, I'm gonna kick your butt in a snowball fight. Is so, like, sibling energy. Before you pointed out, like yeah, I mean, they are sibling energy. They are brother-in-laws.
It's found family energy versus sibling
forced
energy.
family energy.
And, like, it's found family versus forced family, and it's so amusing on so many different levels. I love Wilson so much. Like, I love found family tropes, and I love my family. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't like Devin, but, like, it's just so funny to see and compare the dichotomy that Whit has between Wilson in comparison to, like, these other characters.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he loves Wilson, but Wilson is also his brother. And it's not like, you're my brother, I care about you so much, like he has with Jack. It's like, you're my brother, and I wish you weren't, because my sister got married and I had no say.
You know that meme where it's like a 3x3 of, like, people's faces, and there's where it's like, you know, you supported me when no one else, not you.
Not you.
I have so much
like,
love and respect to spiritually support everyone in this town, not you.
It's so good because, like, Whit, even though he has that whole thing with, like, not getting along with his family that well, like, he still doesn't have this relationship that feels this way with, like, any of his, like, family members.
Well, it's true, because all of the other ones, it's like, it's very sad about, like, how different circumstances in his life and the way and the things that have happened to them have created walls that haven't allowed them to communicate together properly, and he wants to fix that. Whereas with him and Wilson, it's like, screw you.
It's like that. I keep on referencing so many vines today with just, like, laying on the back of, like, the...
You want to know a secret? I hate you.
Thank you. I'm glad you knew exactly what vine I was talking about. Let's tell each other a secret about ourselves. I'll go first. I hate you. And I love that for them so much.
I know that one in particular because I first learned it when Linda sent it to Alex, and I reference that when they're together all the time.
Yeah, but like in this episode, just like everyone running around in the snow and like all the ladies like trying to get their fashion stuff, and then Wit just like lying on the back of like the snowmobile and just looks upside down at who else. You want to know a secret about ourselves? I'll go first. Or let's tell each other a secret about ourselves. I'll go first. I hate you.
Well, I also like the idea of them both trying to like convince other people, like Connie and Eugene, are like, no, you don't understand, like the things that he'll say to me sometimes when no one else is around, and then like that happens, and he'll turn around and be like, and like, I didn't hear anything. He's like,
see, like the difference is
no
with,
one,
like, any of the
like
characters
Captain
were,
Holt, like no one will ever believe you.
and with like all the other found family like brothers that Wit has, it's like if you come across a character who's like, can you tell me like a story about Wit when he was little, and like tell me something embarrassing, like they will find like a really embarrassing story. Well, Wit will hear it and he'll be like, oh, why did you tell them that? But like kind of in an endearing way, like with the triangle or something like that, where it's like, that's really embarrassing and I wish you didn't know about that part of my life. But like, and then Will sit and he's like, unprompted, we'll just go up to someone and be like, want to hear about the worst things Wit has ever done to me? You want to hear about the 50 separate accounts where he stole my theater?
Do you want to hear about like the worst person I ever knew as a child? Here's the story. And that
and
child,
then at the end of it, you're like, and that person was John Avery.
That person was Albert Einstein.
He waits until he's got you completely engrossed in the story, and you also hate the kid.
Exactly, right?
And then he's like, and that person,
he has to get
Wit.
you like on his side and get you like built up against this villain before he's like, and that kid was John Avery Whittaker.
I need like Wilson, Connie, Eugene content where it's just those awful stories about Wit.
I need that. I need to know all of the sermons
that
that Wilson has told over the last century where he used childhood stories with Wit as object lessons and sermons.
He's like, I'm not gonna name a name, and then he proceeds not to say a name, but every now and then he'll just like look into the audience, just like the congregation, and make direct eye contact with Wit, and Wit's just
Wit
like,
wouldn't be there. He's traveling all around the country, but
yeah, but like on the
the
days
world,
where Wit is there, like Wilson makes sure, like every single time Wit is there, just to have one embarrassing story and slip one detail that just kind of clues you into the fact that it's most likely Wit, and also makes prolonged eye contact with Wit as he walks across the stage, just like continuing to stare at Wit the whole time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyways, makes no mistake, it was a really good ending to all of this, and it's like we already knew that it was this like crazy set of circumstances that allowed the Calhouns to make it to the hospital. But this episode really compounded on like, we didn't even know the beginning of like how many crazy circumstances there were that allowed Jules to be okay. Because it's like Wyatt just happened to be coming by and like help them get down. But then he also just happened to have the air horn to flag someone down, and Wit and Wooten just happened to be there and be with Connie, who was passing by, and she had the snowmobile that they could use to pull the thing there. And then that's even before all the stuff happened with the Calhouns, like making their whole trip and then having to like make a phone charger like with the bicycles so that they could get the code for Wally's junkyard to get his car and stuff, his truck, and drive it to the hospital.
A lot of things going on.
A lot of things going on. So this really took like what happened there and expanded on like even more the crazy set of circumstances that it took for Jules to be okay here. I'm gonna give this episode.
Oh wait, are we rating them individually? I guess we are.
We have been doing them individually, yeah.
Yeah, what's your rating?
This is kind of individual, kind of as a whole. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because I think it had like a really good stakes. It expanded well on the theme that was kind of opened up by the first episode, and just like holistically the way that it like wrapped up this whole arc and doing all of that stuff together was very impressive.
What would you have a rating for this episode and a rating for like the 4 episodes as a whole?
That's kind of what I'm doing, I think.
Like 2 separate ratings.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like I think it's the same. the both the same.
Okay.
Because of like how the very cute moments with Buck and Jules and stuff like that, and Connie, and the ingenious writing from Kathy, with the terrible, cruel line about like, I need you like I need a hole in the head and stuff like that.
So
But I'm
mean.
so glad that I picked up on the second that she said it, because there's something when she said the line at the beginning, there's something about it that like stuck in my head that made me think about it, and so I remembered it immediately later on.
I think I'm gonna give it, and I think this is kind of like my rating for all of them as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And this is partially because I tend not to gravitate towards this type of storytelling where it's like all these different things happening at the same time and then meeting at the end.
Uh-huh.
Like even just like in books I read.
Yeah,
usually it's like characters with
it's
like
okay.
two
You've already talked about a
storylines
bunch. You don't have to like justify your
So I
feelings.
think I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. But like that being said, that's more from like a personal enjoyment level for me. From like a technical standpoint, I think it was like very, very good. It did almost feel like a little bit much to add in like Jules and Buck on top of everything.
Yeah.
But like at the same time,
That was the one thing where I thought like
all
maybe
the episodes like were about different stories.
Yeah.
So like I do get that. Plus there wasn't like an episode's worth of expanding really to be done, I'd say. Because no one else really had like that much going on to warrant a full episode onto themselves.
Uh-huh.
So like yeah, I think it was well done. I don't have much more to say. I'm just thinking about like Whit and Wilson now. Just thinking about like how much I like them as a sibling relationship. I think like my favorite sibling dynamics in writing that I always gravitate towards are the ones where there's like
no one bullies them except for me.
Yeah, where it's like there's an equal measure of, or like not an equal measure, but like a well-rounded measure of both like love and spite and teasing. Just like it, because like whenever I come across, I've said this before in the like podcast, but whenever I come across like sibling dynamics, like if they're calling each other like literally like brother or sister or something like that, it's weird. It feels weird. Like if you say like someone's like relation to you and you speak English as a first language and it's not like bro or something like that, like a casual bro.
Hey
like,
bro. Hey Aniki.
Like I say bro to Devin, but I say bro to Devin on the same level that I would say it to like Riley or someone like that. Just like anybody I know who is one of my friends. Like and then
Either that or you're
have,
saying
like,
it to me ironically.
Yeah, or I'm saying it to you ironically. But you also have like, and this usually I find it tends to more be in like Japanese anime kind of like manga stuff, where it's like those two siblings are too close and they need less closeness because this is also very uncomfortable.
That is certainly a trope in anime.
And then you like, it's like Whit and Wilson are really good. I especially like look out for like sibling dynamics I like in brother-sister like relationships.
Because you're like, haha, I do that.
Haha, I do that. So like I'm really picky when it comes to that because they can either fall into like too antagonistic or too unantagonistic. So,
too
like, I think
protagonistic.
Yeah, too protagonistic. So that's why I like Odyssey's always been really good at writing sibling relationships, I found. And like that's one of the biggest reasons why like Lorium and Strelitzia, I was so happy and satisfied with how they're written because I was really worried it was going to be like creepy or something like that because he was going to so much effort. But then the second Elrena's like, you really care about your sister, don't you? He's like, I mean,
shut up.
I guess. I guess I do. And the key kid's mentioned by Strelitzia and Lorium's like, ooh. And Strelitzia's like, shut up, I hate you. I was like, you know what? Nomura definitely has siblings. It makes me want more sibling relationships, except for all the siblings keep on dying. Baldur has an older sister, and she's definitely dead. That is my hot take on the ending of Dark Road. Anyway, we're not talking about this anymore.
No.
What is next week?
Well, first we have to review 2021, the AIOC right now.
Right.
So let's talk about that right now. All right, now, time to talk about all of 2021 AIOC album. So, starting off the year, we have If I Never Told You. This was the Penny and Wooten and Penny's aunt and her parents all staying at the Trickle Lake cabin.
That was the beginning of this year's OAC?
Yep, that was the January episode.
Wow.
It was a Christmas January episode.
We were really late with reviewing these episodes, weren't we?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't listen to that one that long ago.
I think it's interesting how this episode could have been made like an episode in the middle of the Snowstorm saga. Like we said before, I wouldn't have been surprised if there had been a middle episode in all of that just wasn't related to anything, and it was kind of like the beginning and one of the ones in the middle, and then at the end the tied together, and there's one in the middle wasn't related to anything, because this did involve like, oh, it's snowing really hard and we're stuck. But they put it here, which meant that the Snowstorm episodes were all completely related and tied together, and I really am glad that they decided to specifically separate this one out so that the Snowstorm stuff was like fully cohesive and every one of them mattered to the plot of it.
Plus, I guess Wooten wouldn't have been like in
that's
stuff.
That's a good point too. Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like they happened at the same time.
No, yeah.
They could have happened like a week apart or something like that, if you want to say they all happened the same winter.
Well, I don't, because one was in January and the other happened a year later. Do you have any other thoughts about
BioShock? I hardly know her.
Uh-huh.
I like getting to know more about Penny's family. Her mom was vicious in this episode. This was the one where Frank was like cool.
Yeah, cool-headed. Yes, and we also found out about how they met also in this one. At the very end.
We had a mention of Bradford. And not Wellington.
Not Wellington, but...
Which brings us to a month ahead of time, the clown hero, aka me, before I became Dr. Books.
I was going to say, funniest thing about the clown hero is still you saying that this title is when you come up with Wellington headcanons. But anyways, yeah, it's cool to learn more about Penny's family, and I like that she was from Alaska and Wooten knew who she was and stuff like that. It was neat. Next episode was Kofkino, Tale of a Doof, a Hare, and a Hedgehog.
I still so often think about all the Duke stuff. Not Duke, like priest.
Oh yeah,
the
Pope.
Pope, thank you.
That's what they're called. Yeah.
Stuff that I learned.
Because of that. I still don't get how the title is any different from just saying imagination or daydream, but I'm glad I at least learned 2 new Grimm tales, of which I'd never heard before. I'm still not a fan of Holstein 2.
I'm trying to think if I even learned one of them.
Well, you definitely you heard of the 3 languages. You told me
I knew the 3 languages one. But the first one was basically just... I think I knew the first one also. So, yeah, I didn't learn anything. I guess I learned the word Kofkino, but, like, that's it. I learned about some, like, popes. Some dead guys.
We all learned a lot about some popes, just like we do every time on Let's Read About Pope Wikipedia pages.
Our favorite. Pope time.
Yeah. Clown Hero.
Me,
There
the
was some,
clown
yeah, there was
hero.
some really funny stuff in this because I was like, funniest thing is what Victoria said about herself, and then I was like, actually, I'm wrong. The funniest things are the series of lines where Valerie's like, I'm going as a clown. And Olivia's like, well, you know, some people are scared of clowns. And I was like, well, exactly. Well, I'm going to be a nice clown. That way, no one will mix us up.
How dare you? What I said was still funnier than
And
that.
then I was like, actually, the funniest thing was when Valerie is on the news and she was like, my grandmother used to sit with a crooked smile and an evil grin, and she would tell me, Valerie, get what you can in life, do it now, and destroy everyone in your path. She died alone in a house with a cat and fish that both hated her. And that's why I vowed to be different.
Honestly, Valerie's kind of iconic in this episode.
It's a great scene. I forgot about it again when I re-listened to it, and I was like, there really are some very good moments in this. Search for a sunflower.
This one was cute.
It's cute.
This one had like that really sweet art guy.
Yeah,
I liked
one
him.
of the more forgettable episodes I felt like in this season overall.
I forgot that this episode existed, but to be fair, I forgot that all the episodes before it existed too. So
Full House being very ACAB in the episode where it's like, yeah, I know your lawyer isn't here yet, but just confess anyways. Please forgo all of your legal rights to tell me everything. I don't want to be a lawyer. But the art guy was cool, and I liked his like rose bush made out of tin cans and stuff like that.
Hurricane Perkins was
Hurricane
good.
Perkins was...
Hurricane Perkins is like the first episode so far that we've talked about that's like really stuck in my brain since listening to it.
When Wyatt first starts to destroy this new kid's brain, it's really funny when you listen to how many things he says in the course of a single minute that patently don't make any sense whatsoever. I think this was the first episode where I realized that, like, Wyatt wasn't just making up all of this stuff and that he was just, like, reading internet conspiracies. Up until now, I thought that he was just, like, making everything up wholesale off the top of his head in any given moment. I didn't realize he was just, like, had no internet literacy.
He just, like, is subscribed to BuzzFeed articles.
No, he just spends way too much time on Reddit and 4chan.
But this was the first episode that made me realize, like, wow, all of the Perkins are, like, equally unhinged. It's not
Yeah,
just
well, it was so great because we spent all that time
kids.
beforehand being like, which one of them is it? Which one is going to be a disaster? And then it was
like,
all of
oh,
them.
they're all a disaster.
And it's
but
funny
as a
'cause-
family, and I think that's beautiful.
Because we were like, oh man, like Wyatt really messed that kid up, and Bridget kind of messed that kid up too. Grant, she was so sweet to the little girl until she started traumatizing
That was
her.
adorable, okay? That was so cute.
Until she first started traumatizing her, the scene up until then was very cute. But when they were like, oh, all of my family has been messed up by you, I never would have realized, like, up until that point, like, oh yeah, also Carla, like, messed that wife up and is, like, giving her nightmares and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like
she
that.
was like, you know, your husband's gonna die. And she's like, I'm sorry, what?
No, Victoria, that would be so much easier. She was like, you're going to spend every night up awake, plagued with nightmares, not knowing if he's alive or dead, which is much worse.
Yeah.
And
Revenge of Bigfoot. Scooby-Doo, y'all.
yeah, Frank Walker. Frank
That
Walker.
guy who came in at the end, he's like, Eugene ruined my life. He was like, I'm sorry, who are you again?
I really liked how Eugene, like, the first time that he, like, because they're like, oh, this doctor, he wrote this paper about Bigfoot, and then knowing later that Eugene is the one who wrote the paper.
Yeah, Eugene is like, well, actually...
The way that he backdoors in his rebuttal paper is by saying of Dr. Harding, I believe clears throat, reputable colleague of his published a paper citing flaws in many of his claims.
He really did that. He really talked himself up like that, and then was completely outed that was just him.
The way he, like, clears his throat to be like a reputable colleague is so much funnier once you realize that he's talking about himself. And
It's because
yes,
Buck wasn't there on the trip and Katrina wasn't either, so you just had to talk himself up.
you were absolutely correct, Victoria. That Buddy was having the reverie in which began with Jay talking about how smart and talented and handsome he is, and then ended up being Buddy's imagination.
Mm-hmm. Which, yo, can I just say that's kind of
I I still don't get the timeline of Buddy's intentions in this episode.
I think it's really funny that Zoe potentially has a thing for Buddy, but Buddy's just in the corner. He's like, "Yo, I'd much rather Jay has a thing for me." Actually, if Zoe found that
That's
out,
why
she'd
it's
be like,
called a
"Can we
love
please
triangle.
switch? This is like a love line."
No, it's a triangle because there's an arrow pointing to here, to here, to here.
Oh, it is. It's an actual love triangle.
An actual love triangle, not just
you never see those.
Exactly, not just a love bent line.
Yeah, because Zoe likes Buddy. Buddy likes Jay, and Jay likes Zoe. Oh, you're right. Yep.
Yes. Anyways, the timeline of Buddy's intention still doesn't make sense to me because at the end, he was like, yeah, I knew the nest was fake the whole time, but I led Jay on because I wanted to get back at him for making fun of my dad. But
he
didn't
wanted Jay to do the Scooby-Doo thing where Jay jumps in his arms and then he gets to hold him.
But Jay didn't make fun of his dad until he brought up the Bigfoot thing, and he didn't bring up the Bigfoot thing until he saw the nest. And so how could he have known, like, Jay hadn't made fun of his dad yet at the point that they first saw it.
Have you ever contemplated the fact that Buddy could be lying?
No. Buddy's never lied a day in his life. He's far too naive and innocent for that.
Have you ever contemplated the fact that Buddy did all of it so he could spend more time with Jay?
Much to think about. Voice of Freedom, parts 1 and 2. I really like this two-parter. The first part is very straightforward, and my favorite part is the intensity of the atmosphere. Oh, as soon as we start recording, can't stop yawning. The very intensity of the atmosphere and the way it gives listeners a perspective of this life in a completely different paradox, seeing things from a super different angle, and how that paradigm shift alters the way that you perceive things. Which is very similar to Drake the Cosmic Copper, except through a realistic lens instead of a sci-fi one.
I re-listened to that like a couple weeks ago. That episode still like really holds up and then falls apart in the last minute. So again, my opinion on that episode like has not changed since the day I first heard it.
Part 2 does a really good job at showing the breakdown in the system and how all these hateful systems are usually built around hypocrisy on an individual level, like how Jiho's dad could lock up so many civilians, but then he gave his own son a pass. It's very similar to a section of the Screwtape letters, where Screwtape talks about how in your patient it's very difficult to generate absolute hate for everyone around you, both material and theoretical. And so if someone has to feel like, generosity towards some and hate towards others, it's better to make them feel like compassion towards like the theoretical general that they don't actually interact with, while feeling disdain for the people around them, instead of vice versa, where in the context of World War II, where it's like, I hate the Axis and like all of them are awful, but then the people in their life around them, they're actually giving genuine care to. And if a soldier showed up on their back door who is an enemy who is wounded, they would still like take them in and bandage the wounds because it's an actual person in front of them. They were like, if that arrangement of it is much worse, because then in actual practical scenarios, they're actually showing compassion for each other.
Yeah,
it's much better for them to look at like the general populace in an abstract way with goodwill, but then the people around them, they're always like embittered and angry and resentful.
Yeah, it's like hating an idealized version of a concept because you can practice dehumanizing like people that are associated with that concept. It's like how if you ever think about the fact that like you might not like a person, like a real life person or something like that, or like an actor from a certain show and say like you hate them or something and be mean to them on like, I don't know, social media or something like that. But if you've ever met them in real life, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you're that person. Hi, hello. Like,
Exactly. And so Screwtape talks about like we don't want them to do this because people are very prone to that, to like, oh yeah, I can have all these like negative feelings in the abstract, but once I'm face to face with a real person, I'm like, oh, you're a person, and I'm gonna treat you like a human being. And this is a great example of that, where Jiho's dad, in the general populace, is like, I have absolute loyalty to my country, no compromises. I will do whatever I need to like destroy these innocent people's lives for the sake of my country. But when it's his own son, he was like, I can't hate you enough to do what I should, and so instead I'm going to, get you out of my sight, out of my mind, but I'm still going to let you live. I'm still going to let you be free about it. And also, like going back to the episode in general, does a great job at looking at how you can become so entrenched in a system that you become too scared to leave it, even when you know it would be much more freeing and joyous for you, but it's the fear of the unknown that keeps you from going into it. So I think all of those were tackled really well with part two.
Really liked, I think my favorite bits between the two parts were the last sections of both of the episodes, primarily. Like, I thought all of it was really good, but like the bits from entering the prison onwards in part one, and then the part where he's reunited with his dad to the end in part two, and his dad decides like not to sell him out. Like, those last halves of the episodes were just
What was
like,
the part
so
at the
good.
very end you were saying that you disliked?
What?
You said like the last minute.
Oh, no, I was talking about Drake the Cosmic Copper when I said that.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah, where everyone's just like, I think I'm going to insert my opinion, even though it makes no sense for my character to be this way. Like, I think it's mostly, I don't know, it's really bad for everyone, but the most like grievous person in that episode is definitely Penny. Because she's instantly like, oh, yeah, my bee. Yeah. Sorry, I'm instantly gonna change all these actual human opinions I've developed for years and made like processes in the company I work for.
I don't think it's supposed to be
actively
canon.
like put all these like things into place. Yeah, I'll just go against that immediately. Like, yep, that's good writing. I know it's like not supposed to be good writing, and like that's part of the joke, but like I hate it anyway.
For an episode that otherwise like was so strong in its concept, it just feels like, weird at the end like that.
It does feel weird. It didn't need to have that last minute. It could have just ended with everyone being like, wow, that was a really good episode. And then it stops. But anyway, that was the first season of the OAC. This is not...
That was the third episode.
And then we're on to the snow.
We're on to the snow. The snow must go on.
First snow. Ranking the snow episodes, I think it for me was the third one with like Wooten and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
The one with like Wit and Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
The last one, because that one was so much, and then the first one. But like, to be fair to the first one, it was mostly just like setting up a lot of...
Were you saying the last one is the best? Or sorry, the first one is the best?
My favorite was the third one.
Oh.
Followed very closely.
That's what it looked like you're doing with your hands, but I was really surprised that you would
put the third one followed closely by this.
That you would put the fourth one as second to last.
And then the fourth one, and then the first one. Like, upon reflection. Because I do like all the interactions that the kids had in the second one, or in the third one. And like, the second one had all the Wilson Wit stuff, which just I was thriving off of that.
I think I would swap the third and fourth ones in like my ranking compared to yours. Like I would go 4, 2, 3, 1.
And Yeah, I liked the interactions we got from the third episode. I liked that everyone was a bit scummy at certain points, and Jay was a lot at times when it came to the Zoe stuff, but I'm just gonna ignore that because I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
I'm always surprised that you put
but
the fourth one so low with all the like
I mean,
Buck and
like,
Jules
to be fair,
stuff and all the like the super like tense drama of it. And
yeah, I think that's why I put the fourth one where it did.
It's
It
too
was
traumatic
hard
for you?
to listen to. Like, it was good, but like in terms of re-listenability,
surprisingly intense.
it was super intense and a lot to listen to and very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole time I was listening to it, I was really, really, really stressed because I didn't know who would get hurt. So like, if I re-listened to all four of them, I would probably rank them differently. But as is right now, that's my opinion. And then the first one is ranked lowest for me because it was just like a lot of setup stuff. And I do really like the characters in the new family we have, but I'm just not as attached to them as I am with all the other characters in the other episodes yet because I haven't known them as long. So
I understand. Like I said, I also put one as the lowest, although I really do like the Calhouns as a family.
And like there are stakes in the first episode with like everything with Jules, but me only listening to them once, my brain like is still like, I didn't know it was Jules. I didn't know it was a kid we knew.
On re-listening, the hospital scene does feel a lot more grave now that we know the context of Jules' injury. On re-listen, new insights and things. Joseph, at the beginning, like we observed before, he says the injured party is a minor. And then later, we hear some info relayed over the phone, but it's all in short form. Kayla is telling Joseph, so there's no pronouns that are given because it's like bullet point that she's saying basically. And then at the end, the nurse says, I'll inform the family that Dr. Calhoun has arrived, and then Trey and Cooper remark about how they're glad that the plane cancellation allowed their dad to save, quote, the kid. So no gendering is given, and only generic mention of the family of the patient is referred to as them.
Them, Connie, standing.
Them,
alone.
Just Connie, yeah. Connie and friends. So we completely invented the gendering of it.
I can't believe we created gender. Sorry, guys.
I know. I feel ashamed and dirty.
I feel bad.
So on and so forth.
I think, wait, real quick, just to specify, I guess, to clarify my choosing of the fourth being lower a little bit more. I have like two ranking scales.
How they stand
in my
alone
mind.
and how they are in the context of the whole.
Not quite. It's more like how objectively good I think they are and how subjectively good I think they are. Like, so like there might be an episode where I think like it's flawlessly written or something like that.
But I don't really like it.
I think like on just an objective like technical level, it's really good. Like the scripting is good, the character development is good, but just for whatever reason, even if it's something I can't like completely put into words, I couldn't get into it as much as I might have gotten into something else. Or in certain cases, it's like it was a stressful thing for me to listen to, and that was mostly the case with this one. And whereas like the third episode and the second episode are a lot more like fluffy, and if you think about when I was listening to them at the same time, it was around the time I was doing capping. So it's like I literally do not need more stress in my life right now.
I feel like I usually give higher marks to an episode with enough tension to make me feel stressed about something, because I feel like it's a compliment to the episode that it's able to like draw out that kind of like actual emotion in me.
I respect that a lot, but it also made me feel really sick every single time I think about the injuries.
That's
like,
fair. I understand that.
Like the whatever it's called, the whole
burr holes, yeah.
Phobia. What is it?
Oh, trypophobia.
Trypophobia. This episode triggers my trypophobia, like when I think about it.
That's fair.
And I don't like that.
I understand that. So on and so forth. Whit comments on Tom's sleigh in the shed, formerly used to bring kids around town and to the farm, and we talked about it previously in terms of caroling and stuff. But Whit and Wilson talked about, like, oh, maybe we'll go in a ride in it with the horses later, and then that's the sleigh that they used to go after Wooten and Company, which I didn't put together previously. I really like the fact that we got the first kind of, like, Rathbone adjacent interaction in the decade. Was really nice.
And the main thing was Whit and Wilson, just
there,
which we talked about that extensively.
Yeah, they're really good in it.
In that, they're the best part about that episode.
Snow who's boss. Even in this episode, Wyatt was already saving lives with survival stuff, and then
Wyatt really popped off in the Snow episodes.
Out of everyone in this four-parter, it's like Dr. Calhoun and Wyatt are like the two most responsible for saving lives people.
They're like the VIPs.
Yeah.
Of the episodes.
Like they did the most important to work in direct life-saving of people. Which is cool. In this episode and the next, Wyatt was just like kicking
figured
butt.
out how to like transfer Jules' body and everything.
Exactly, and get them down off of the roof and had the air horn to flag them down so that they came to the school, in addition to, figuring out the carbon monoxide poisoning that was happening.
Wyatt is like, honestly, a child hero. If you think about the last couple of years of Wyatt content,
which is a step above a clown hero.
He saved his sister from drowning multiple times. He's like saved people from getting hypothermia and from carbon monoxide poisoning or gas poisoning, whatever. He saved Jules when she was like grievously injured and had like brain damage, basically, and saved her from dying. And he is an all-around good boy, and I care him deeply. Your fave could never. My fave could never, because my fave is Wellington, and he's an idiot.
And then makes no mistake. After going through all of them, I was like, I'm not sure I get the title of this one. The only thing I could think of is that it's adding Jules for making a mistake when she climbed down and
I think it
slipped
is.
And cracked her skull on a dumpster.
Yeah.
Because all the other titles make sense about...
That title really said L when Jules was just laying comatose in a hospital.
Yeah, because it feels too generic to be like, make no mistake, God is going to make all these things happen by coincidence.
Closing the door accidentally.
Yeah, don't lock yourself on a roof during a blizzard. Or
getting locked in the library. I was telling my coworkers about me getting locked in the library and how that came up in an Odyssey episode, and there was a character who was just like, who gets locked in a library? And I was like, yeah, crazy. That never happened. But another episode I just re-listened to because I had to drive down to Nelson to drop off Resume there. And I was like, I should listen to some Odyssey while I drive. So I re-listened to Nightmares by Constance. That two-parter is still...
Why'd you re-listen to it, Victoria?
So good. I had this feeling in my soul that something big was coming. I think of all like the multi-parters that have come out in the last several years, that is the one I've listened to the most times. Like, that one's definitely my favorite, and it has nothing to do with anything that's in it. It's just, yeah.
I'm so excited for the next album.
I was listening to, is that episode released yet by the time?
Yeah, we haven't. The first part of this episode is the only thing that we have in the bank right now. Except for the movie review that we recorded like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so like, re-listening to that episode, I was like, man, my girl truly is just the best character. She saved the day time and time again, recognizing the suitcase and pointing it out so that like Jason remembered it and that kind of thing. like the suitcase that the grandma owned being in the same location, that like the first like knocking out and stealing instance happened on the security footage. Her making sure that like using her theater background, because of course she's a theater kid, that like her and Jason would be adequately prepared for like having their own backstory so they would fit in. Being late at the beginning and not meeting anyone that really had to do with all of this, so she was like the perfect plant. And also just the moment where Jason's like all heart eyes over her because she instantly gets Caleb's jacket, because she's just like, oh no, because like she's like fiddling with her hands and Jason's like, no, you're doing too much with your hands, you look suspicious, here, hold this water. And then she instantly like dumps it on him and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh no, let me take your jacket, let me go get you another jacket. And they start walking away,
you know, like
Jason's
people
just
do,
like heart eyes, like, I can't believe you did that. Like, he's so proud of her and she's a better spy than he is. And you can instantly
it's funny because it makes Jason
like,
look really senile for not realizing what she's doing.
It really makes Jason just have like the biggest heart eyes audibly that like you can hear, because when he's just like, you just got his jacket and his room key in the span of like less than a minute basically, and you can just hear in his voice that he was just like, I had like a 20-step plan that was gonna take me like 15 minutes that had like this percentage of failing,
and he was going to have to die in the process.
Yeah, and I was gonna have to die in the process, get engaged to Tasha again, and then break off the engagement again.
I meant Caleb was gonna die, not Jason.
And then quit the agency again. And then Jillian's like, I'm already holding like his room keys. Oh, Jillian, double L Marshall.
Yeah.
Most skilled individual in this entire series. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about album overall after a quick cut so that I can go pick up Alex from work.
Okay.
Alright, I am back from driving and collecting persons. So.
But you know what you're also back from? Having wrong opinions about math and music.
The album overall.
Unlike me.
The album overall. Let's see. Voice of Freedom and the Snow stuff, high point for me overall. Granted, that is 50% of the entire season.
I think the highlights for me were Voice of Freedom, the Snow's content, and Hurricane Perkins.
Yes, I agree with that. Weakest is Coffee Kino, easily. Probably followed by Search for a Sunflower. Yeah. And then
I'd say
Revenge of Bigfoot.
Cough Kino is Cough Kino at the bottom. I did have a lot of fun with talking about Cough Kino, and it did have Marco's VA, Adam.
Yes. Something. Adam MacArthur.
Adam MacArthar, thank you.
Although I learned after that he's Horace, so he's been in a bunch of other episodes.
Yeah, I forgot about that again. So like Cuff Kino. Say Revenge of Bigfoot. Search for a Sunflower.
Mm-hmm. After those, I would put If I Never Told You, and then
Clown Hero. If I Never Told You. Snow. Voice of Freedom, and Hurricane Perkins. Those last two are like basically
so pretty similar to my list. I would go Cough Kino, Search for a Sunflower, Revenge of Bigfoot, If I Never Told You, Clown Hero, Hurricane Perkins, and those last six are really close.
I'm just grouping the Snow
episodes so am I.
together. We already talked about like our individual orders.
Exactly.
For the Snow
Yeah.
episodes.
Good point. Ooh, they're so different. They're good in very different ways. It's hard to compare Voice of Freedom and the Snow quadrilogy, the tetralogy of foul snow. Let's complete the snow puns. Everyone loves puns based on the tetralogy of fellow.
I don't know what any of the words you just said were. Rank your episodes.
I'll put I'll put Snow above Voice of Freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good season overall for the AIOC. The Snow quadrilogy really strengthened it, I think.
Yeah.
And the fact that the best episodes were like the last 6 in a row, like it was a really strong close to the year.
The fact that it gave me the phrase "the clown hero" is something I find to be very empowering. Personally,
In the end,
feel like
aren't
I've
we
had
all a
stronger
little bit
feelings.
a clown hero?
I feel like I've had stronger feelings about some other OAC albums, and I'm probably only gonna give it like a 4 out of 5, maybe like a 3.8
I was
out of
gonna
5,
say
because
3.8.
like, yeah, like the first half, basically, other than Hurricane Perkins, like some of these episodes I forgot existed. So, and like even upon seeing the title, was struggling to remember the plot. So, yeah, the back half was definitely a lot stronger than the first half.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, let's talk about new stuff.
2022, we have 7 titles that we are knowing of, which is everything up until May next month. And then 1 title that we don't know what month it's going to be. Okay. 934, A Dickensian Dilemma. We got old Uncle Charlie in the mix. I assume not Chris.
For a second, I thought you were talking about a character named Uncle Charlie, and not the fact that we are in fact related to Charles Dickens.
Yes, I mean technically not uncle.
I always call him Cousin Charlie because he's our cousin.
Yes, I mean it's
uncle.
But cousin is so vague. It's almost uncleship is so close. First cousin 6 times removed.
Whenever I was in an English class and my teachers talked about like sketchy stuff Charles Dickens did, I always felt the need to like apologize.
What, like ghost things?
No, like real life sketchy things.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, he was like all about like ghosts and spiritualism. I didn't know if that you were talking about.
No, I'm talking about
it's okay. You don't have to air his dirty laundry on the podcast.
Afterwards.
We don't need to slander Charles Dickens on the internet like this. So, I assume it'll be specifically about one of his stories. And
look at what I just typed.
No, I mean, obviously, it was going to be something like that.
Yeah.
Old people. Do you think it will be a straight-up retelling of a story, such as Monsieur Twist or the Tale of Two Cities?
I'm thinking it will.
Or will it be someone?
I'm thinking there's a high chance if it's not
Slice
like a
of
radio,
life.
like a kids radio thing, or like some kind of story scripted thing in universe, like diegetically scripted, I guess.
It's a completely improv episode.
It'll be, that's how the live shows feel sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
I bet there are so many improv moments in the live shows, genuinely.
Well, we know there are.
I know, and...
Anyways.
Yeah, anyway, I'm thinking it will be kind of, if it's not diegetically scripted kind of narrative, then more of a retelling, but the characters don't realize they're in a retelling. It's just they're events or
Yeah, well,
reflecting
the fact that it's called like a
story.
Dickensian dilemma, it kind of makes me feel like The Merchant of Odyssey. If that's the way that you mean it, where it's like, oh,
honestly, I would rather they do that route with the episode than a scripted thing.
yeah, where it's like, oh, we're kind of falling into this thing, and then we have a dilemma. How do we solve it? And then someone's going to be like, this kind of reminds me of another story.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, beans, I've been Christmas caroling it, and I didn't even realize it.
This would be a fun way to like have Shakespeare and Edwin reappear. That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I'm pretty sure Earl Bowen passed away a number of years ago.
Oh, I did not know about. I probably did know about that and forgot. But there's always that thing that makes me kind of insane with like stories where it's obviously a retelling of a different story or like heavily influenced by a piece of media. Yeah. But then at one point, this story mentions that piece of media exists. And then I just have like a ton of questions. And I'm like, I wish you didn't mention it. Like, I get.
You mean like they acknowledge that the source material exists, but they don't acknowledge, hey, this is just like that.
Yeah, or even when they do acknowledge that, like, this is just like that. Like, sometimes that can be good if they do that. Like, this is just like that. But if it's just like that, then why isn't, like, this good thing happening or this or this? Okay. Like, that can be interesting and fun.
Because I was saying Merchant of Odyssey, obviously, it's, they're
like... I was rereading this modern-day retelling of Emma, like, a couple days ago. And at one point, the characters were like, oh, yeah, my sister was reading Pride and Prejudice. And I was like, okay, if Pride and Prejudice exists... does Emma also exist? And they never answered that question. And then my brain is just thinking about, like, my brain is yesterdaying it, like the Beatles movie, where it's just like, okay, it makes me want to Google, like, did Jane Austen write Emma before or after Pride and Prejudice? If she wrote it before Pride and Prejudice, like, would that have made Pride and Prejudice turn different somehow in how the narrative is constructed? And then I can never know peace. Like, the end of Happy Death Day, when I rewatched it, I totally forgot that it ended on a line of just, like, the main guy saying to Tree, like, oh yeah, this reminds me so much of, like, Groundhog Day. And then she's just like, what? And he's like, Groundhog Day? And she's like, I don't know what that movie is. And he's like, with Bill Murray? And she's like, who's Bill Murray? And I was like, you know what? I was off board, but then she said, who's Bill Murray? And I was like, this is still the most iconic movie I've ever seen.
Because it has the same...
And then there's another line, a lot like that, in the second movie. And I could appreciate the first and second movies parallel so much better. Like, watching them back to back almost.
It has the same energy as, like, Donna's first episode on Doctor Who. He was like, she's like, bloody aliens. He was like, yeah, like when the Daleks and the Cybermen came. She's like, what are you talking about? In 2012, she's like,
I was on vacation.
I was in Italy. It's like, they had Cybermen in Italy. I was snorkeling.
Oh, Donna's such an icon. Oh my god.
That's what we need to watch is Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh, I do want to watch that, actually. I would enjoy watching that. But, like, because has Alex seen?
No, I don't know if they've ever seen any version of Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh, we gotta watch it. It's gonna be, like, the only Shakespeare play I've fully watched through again. Like,
and it deserves it. It's the best one. I haven't...
I want to agree with you, but I can't.
I know it's not your favorite, but it's my favorite out of the two that...
It's, like, my second
out
favorite.
Out of the two I've seen.
But, I was gonna say a thing. Oh, yeah. Quick tangent. Yesterday, the movie, I don't know if you've seen that.
I know of it.
It makes me a little bit crazy because, like, the whole premise is the guys in the universe where, like, the Beatles don't exist.
But he knows all the
songs. He starts, like, writing the music and then becomes famous. Yes. And then, like, you see these four people every now and then throughout the movie just, like, being sketchy. And then you realize, like... you realize that, like, they also are from our universe. And, like, and you think a conflict is going to happen, they're, like, going to tell people, but instead they're, like, crying, and they're like, the Beatles music meant so much to me, thank you for making it popular again. I never thought I'd hear Yellow Submarine or Octopus's Garden ever again, and now I can't.
I can't believe you said there's these four people, and the answer was not they're the Beatles, but after they
No,
were
'cause, like, two of
displaced
them
in
are
time in
ladies.
this universe, and they're modern day,
Yeah,
and they're
but
like,
it's-
hey, we know you stole our music after.
Those aren't the two songs they named, but I thought it'd be funnier. Those were the two I listed. And it was. And
And it was.
But, like, they also confirm, because there's a couple points where he mentions other things. Like, at one point, he's like, oh, can you get me, like, a Coke or something like that? And someone's like, a what? And he's like, a Coke. And then he just, like, Googles, like, is Coke real? And then
Normal
like,
Google searches to do.
And then, well, he Googles Beatles at one point, and then he just gets bugs, and he's just like, the Beatles aren't real. But then they're just like, we only have Pepsi in this universe, basically.
That's what they told him,
yeah. Line for line. And so then...
At least it was Pepsi. They could have said, like, sorry, and he realized in this universe, instead of changing the name to Pepsi, they still called it Brad's Drink.
But then, right before the movie ends, they have, like, another one of these moments, and they say that, like, Harry Potter doesn't exist in this universe. I'm only assuming it's because J.K. Rowling does not exist in this universe. But at the same time, ever since...
There's no Beatles and there's no Harry Potter.
Me thinking about, like, the combination of, like, I think any one of these three things, as stupid as it sounds, would cause, like, huge ripple effects in time. But just, like, all three of them, like, they only look at the Beatles thing, but at the same point, I'm just like, how many pieces of media wouldn't exist if Harry Potter hadn't existed? Like, controversies
Here's
aside,
what I'm thinking
and how
of.
many, like,
how does the culture surrounding
people...
Santa Claus change if Coca-Cola doesn't exist?
Exactly. That's another thing I thought of. And, like, the culture surrounding holidays would be very different, just, like, because of the Santa Claus stuff, and how many, like, musicians never would have become musicians who would have been, like, I don't know, like, idolizing the Beatles when they were little, and that's why they wanted to go into music. And I was just like, there's so many little things that I feel like this movie, like, doesn't even try to discuss or look at. And they threw, like, the Harry Potter thing in like, the last couple seconds of the movie, and I was just like, you can't do that, because that would have actual ramifications.
Yeah, because everyone would be talking about what kind of
whole.
animorph they would be in their online, like, on their Twitter bios instead.
Exactly. You know what I mean, right?
Yes, I agree. Anyways, the second episode.
It bothers me. Yeah, anyway.
Anyways, episode 935, on to the second one. In for a Penny. This is an episode, and it's about...
Penny's Preggers.
Penny's
Pregante. I showed Mom that video because she'd never seen it before a couple days ago. She was like, what is this? And I was just like, ooh, get Pregante. She's like, what are you doing? Pregnant.
I like the idea of a very literal use of the phrase of, like, in for a penny. It's like, because the baby is in penny, in for penny.
Yeah, that's why I thought we'll get Pregante.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, back when Penny first appeared, we had a bunch of titles that had, you know, penny-based puns.
And now, is Penny become pregnant?
Many speculations does say the news appears, it seems.
I'm too tired to remember more quotes. I can usually, at least I have my cred of the fact that I've, like, gone through so much of the article, just
it's true.
Memorized in past episodes, that I actually can say I do know the quote for the most part, and can say a lot of it. And
I'll let you off the hook. I know you're good.
Evidence that
I know you have the gold to back up that check.
Many people talk today about his bad rumor. What bad rumor? I don't know. The fact that he's gay, dude? I don't know.
Yeah, anything else to say about Penny? I mean...
Pregnant.
I mean, it makes sense after what happened whenever that was with her sister, you know. As you said before, like... It really felt like it was leading up to announcement at the end of that episode where Penny's like, oh, actually, I'm pregnant.
That'd be such, like, a baller move, though. Announcing Penny is pregnant in the OAC.
Oh, yeah.
Now that I say that, I don't think she's pregnant.
Good point.
Okay, but
Dang
it kind of feels
There's
like
such a good...
Focus is kind of counting on the fact that you have an OAC subscription, sort of, at least to me, in terms of the narrative.
I
in keeping
I feel
up.
like that would be a big one, though.
Yeah, so like, the fact that they almost killed Jewel's last album in the OAC, I feel like the next reasonable step is to announce a really big life-changing happenstance in a main character's life in the OAC.
Next episode is...
How funny would it be if she was pregnant in the OAC,
but not
the normal episodes, and they just went back and forth.
Never addressed.
They have a baby,
but
the baby's only alive in the OAC.
Yeah, it's like a half-dimensionally stuck baby and only exists halfway in this universe. Drake and the Aberrant Automaton.
Ooh,
So this is our crossover into the Nier Automata universe.
Which is what I want.
Which is how Wit can be in Kingdom Hearts 5.
This is how Nier Replicant can still get Game of the Year.
This is how Victoria can finally keep playing Nier Replicant.
This is how Victoria was thinking about last night, very late at night, not being able to sleep, how all my plants are probably most surely dead in Nier Replicant.
Maybe.
But at least I have lots of seeds in my inventory.
Maybe.
Also, my car was like Lewis/Louis, because that's what the license plates looked like, and that was how I could like find my car in a crowd. And I just got my car insurance for the first time that I paid for myself because I'm big now. But the thing is, and because I own a car now.
I thought you were talking about your car and your Replicant. I was like, I don't remember that part.
No, my real life car.
I figured
had,
it out eventually.
That looked like the word Lewis. Yes. And that was how I would track down my car and make sure I didn't try and get inside someone else's car and I didn't lose where my car was in a parking lot. But the thing is, I have new plates now. And my car is now called Nier because that's
you just keep doxing your license plate.
My plates look like, and by Nier I mean it has an N and an R and a bunch of other letters, but the first thing I thought of was Nier, so that's what it's called now.
My 3 favorite vanity license plates I've ever seen before, I've all seen in the last, like since I started working for Agilent, and my new 3rd addition to that list I saw just last week, which was Teaspoon Jam with a space in the middle. TSP space Jam.
My favorite license plate is Hot Boy, Hot Boy.
So my favorites now are Teaspoon Jam, Fungus, and
there's that one on Tumblr that someone took a picture of, and it's like, boys.
Yeah, but...
And it's like, this is either like someone who really likes boys.
Or Maximilian Pegasus.
Or Maximilian Pegasus, or a cannibal with a preference. And that is still such a funny picture.
Yeah, but these are all ones I saw in real life in person.
Yeah, but...
I just think it's exciting. I was very excited to see a license plate that said Teaspoon Jam. I thought it was very cute.
That's like the name of like a little robot that you would make that would just like bring stuff across your table for you.
So Drake and the Aberrant Automaton, speaking of little robots.
Speaking of Drake, which I mentioned earlier.
Yes, do you think Wooten, do you think Woobot or whatever his name is the Aberrant Automaton?
Could be. Woots is the name of the robot.
It's the name,
But I'm a little trepidatious for this one because, as I mentioned before, I really like the first Drake episode. And there only been like one other Drake episode?
There's at least 2, I can tell you that much.
Because there's like the time travel one. And I did not care for that episode at all.
Were they at the time-space condominium? Yes, I remember.
They like fought Hitler. But
Space Hitler.
Not Hitler. Yes. But time traveled.
And then Penny's mom was Space Hitler.
It was confusing.
And I was like,
strange.
Man, Wooten is really just like kind of making some strong casting choices with his in-laws.
Yeah. So I'm hoping I like this one. I want to. I always go into a Drake episode wanting to like it. So, of the couple Drake episodes that exist. Except for the first Drake episode. So I guess all the episodes after that I want to like them.
The first one, the title seemed a lot less bad after the fact, and I finally realized that they meant copper as in slang for a police officer, and not copper, the element that is metal.
To be fair, we didn't know that going in.
Yeah, I know. So, that's what I was saying.
In our defense.
That's what I was saying. After the fact, I was like, finally, oh, it's not copper from space. It's not space metal. It's...
I mean, even still, when I think about the episode and I like quote the episode title back, I usually don't think about it being like space police guy.
I don't either.
Like, see a space policeman.
I do not think about it that way either. The Way of the Comic Book is the next episode.
Do you think those two episodes are...
No, but I imagine that Wooten will be involved. I imagine that, I was going to say Buck, by which I mean Jay and Wyatt will be involved.
Why them?
Because they really like comic books, and they've had things about them in the past that centered on their affinity for comic books. So I imagine it'll involve them and Wooten in some way.
I think it would be really cute if Wooten was doing commissions and Jay commissioned Wooten to do a little comic book adventure of him and Elvis. I think that would be very cute.
I think that would be cute.
I think that'd be very cute if Wooten was commissioned by Jay to do a little couple comic book pages of Jay giving Elvis a haircut. Like just sprucing up his pompadour or whatever the heck.
I do like that. I think maybe it'll have something to do with like, I guess we kind of did that last season though, with the one with Jay and Buddy and Zoe where they were doing the story on the radio. The Way of the Comic Book, I was thinking maybe like, I don't want to use the word prejudice here, but yeah, I guess like prejudice against like certain types of media, like understanding how like you can get like real depth and value from different forms of media that you like don't normally think like could be like meaningful like that. I don't know.
How cute would it be if Wooten did like a little workshop at Odyssey High or Odyssey Middle School or whatever for like making comic books? That'd be cool. And they all like joined it. I feel like that would be a little, I don't know, they've done a lot of comic stuff in the past, so it's, but like something like a workshop, there's so much like visual elements to that, it might be a little clunky in just like wording what you're looking at in certain places, but they've never really had that issue when it comes to the comics.
Issue. So. Like comic books. Episode 938 is Knocks on Love. Knox being Knox as in Wilson.
Oh. Do you think it's going to be a Charlotte content?
I feel like it's...
Or present day
I feel like it's probably going to be present day, but I would really like a backstory thing.
It could be him meeting Charlotte.
Well...
It could be him telling a little kid a story, or not Connie or Eugene, just like Renee, like someone who shouldn't know this but is being told this. And Whit also happens to be there, and he's like, I really don't want to hear about you and my sister.
I mean, granted, when he first met Charlotte, was probably like, Charlie was probably like 6 years old.
No, I mean, like, it would be about, like, him...
When they first started dating.
Dating Charlotte. I think it'd be really fun. It'd be, like, a very powerful reverse triangle.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Where Whit is the loser and has to listen to his loss being broadcasted to everyone in the vicinity. And that's just such a compelling thing to me.
Yeah. I really hope that it's like a young adult Wit era like backstory.
YA.
About
YA.
him and Charlie and Wilson.
Is this one out now?
That's this month's episode.
What if I just when we finish recording, just listen to it?
I mean, you can, I guess.
I can. It doesn't sound like it's connected
so I mean, I don't really have solid grounds to stop you.
I should probably listen to the other ones first, but like, what if I didn't?
Yeah, I feel like it's probably more likely that it's present day. Wilson's getting back out there and stuff.
Can I just say, I
Do you think it's
strongly
like the episode from...
don't want it to be present day. I want it to
I would
be
have much rather have it be
backstory.
backstory. I feel like it's more likely it's present day. And now
Unless it's kind of like a Joanne type
Uh-huh.
lady enters the situation where I'm like, this is such a girl boss. Give her an elevator. She
Uh-huh.
deserves it. She deserves the world and anything else she wants. Like, unless it's something like that, I don't
I
think
feel like
I
it'll
will be
be the
interested.
Valentine's Day episode from 2 years ago, and it's just gonna be the same people again, where it's like Edith again and Mrs. Kramer and stuff, and whoever else it was,
I
Dr.
just had
Lily.
a really funny idea, but I need you to keep talking.
Okay, the next
Alright.
episode, and quite frankly, this is an outrage. It's called Results May Vary, but it's coming out in June. It's called Results May Vary. And instead of putting it out 1 month earlier in May, they put it out in June.
I just had a very powerful thought, and it is, what if we took the haha Jonathan meme and we did it with like Wilson, Charlie, and Wit, where it's like, hey, just got back, I was doing stuff, I'm stuff, haha Wilson, you are dating my sister. I couldn't find a meme generator to make that. But I
So what are we talking about next time?
Oh, we have to end now.
Well,
We have to end. It was too strong of an image.
almost. I mean, that was a joke. That was a joke about us ending the podcast, but we actually only do have one other title, anyways. Results may vary. I have no idea.
Connie.
It's about chaos
and
theory.
Jeff Lewis. We haven't seen Jeff in a while.
Yeah.
Bring him back.
I mean, granted,
I miss him.
well, this was pre-Jeff, I guess, when we had something old, something new. And it's funny because you bring that up. This is what I think of when we talk about the theme of like regrets and not dwelling on like what ifs about the past. That's kind of what Wit's message was to...
Dude, you're speaking Mitch into existence, being in another episode, and I need you to stop.
That's
very
what
kindly,
Wit.
please.
That's what Wit's message to Connie at the end of that episode is, and the phrase "results may vary" is kind of making me think about maybe it's thinking
Instead of speaking Mitch into an upcoming episode, I think we should focus on hoping that Jillian's going to be in a future episode.
Yeah,
Either Jillian or Jeff.
but my point
Give
is
me
generally maybe
them.
the title is alluding to like thinking about the choices that we make and like thinking about different possibilities and not dwelling on the roads not taken.
I think we could also do something like that, but with Jason and Tasha, potentially.
That's true.
Have Jillian in that episode, but that feels like it should be
That would
more
be
of
an
like
album
an
episode,
actual
yes.
album episode. But you know what? It can't be, because we're going to spend this next album focusing on Jillian so much that we're not going to have enough time to focus on that part of Jillian. So we have some spillover Jillian in the OAC.
Some Jill over.
Yeah, we have some Jill over, and it's everywhere.
Uh-huh.
It's like glitter, and it gets everywhere.
That's
but like,
rough and coarse and irritating, but in a
it
good
gets
way.
Everywhere, but it's like comforting.
Speaking of liquid everywhere and glitter, the last title,
next episode title,
is Fishing for Gold.
Ooh, we going back to where Bernard and Eugene were gonna murder each other in that cave.
Yeah, Four Corners.
Four Corners. We're going back and we're getting that gold this time. There's like the BuzzFeed Unsolved thing. And it's like, maybe the real treasure was the friends we made along the way. And it's like, no, I want my gold. And then also the bit that's basically almost the same from Our Flag Means Death, where one of the characters was like, you know what, maybe the real treasure we made was the time we spent together today. And then Steed being like, Lucius, we spend every day together. Treasure is treasure. And I'm like, yes, king. But yeah.
I'm gonna lay odds now. I know this is out there. Fishing for gold is like a fisher of men, and the gold is reaching people with Jesus' love. Is probably something like that. But maybe there's actual fishing. Maybe Buck gets to go fishing.
I'm hoping Buck gets to go fishing, because we still haven't really gotten a Buck fishing episode.
It's true. Buck and Jules' fishing trip, and Jay is there, and you were there, and you.
You. How much stuff do you think they have, like, from a technical perspective, pre-recorded?
No idea.
Okay.
I also wonder very strongly about that, because I think given the end of last album, I really would like to know how many more main album episodes with Eugene and Buck are in the can already.
Because Eugene wasn't mentioned in the next album's description, right?
No, but it was a very closed cast, so...
Yeah. No, it feels like, I'm just saying, like, if Eugene was part of that cast,
yeah, no,
I feel like
he's
they
not
would have mentioned it,
but
and
it
I
certainly doesn't
him.
feel like he was, like, pointedly excluded from it.
He wasn't invited. He's like, guys, why didn't you invite me? I could have told you immediately it was going to be the bank.
It's because it wasn't in a bank this time.
It's because he knew it was going to be in a bank, and they weren't supposed to know that yet until, like, the last part.
Exactly.
So he's not allowed to show up
And then he'll be like, you never asked.
Yeah. Did you know it'd be in a bank the whole time, Eugene? It's always in a bank.
It's always an inside job.
It's always in the bank. It's never not in the bank. We've done this so many times.
It is funny that it happened 3 times.
If I had a nickel for every time
there's a mystery with Eugene and a bank robbery, and then it turns out that it was an inside job the whole time, I'd have 3 nickels. I guess the first one wasn't with Eugene because it was the case of the secret room.
Yeah, but it always has to do with the bank.
Yes.
And, like, the thing is, lots of the time these are multi-parters. So,
that's...
I don't really have any other thoughts, and my laptop is gonna go good night soon.
All right.
You gotta do stuff.
Yeah, so. Well, then in that case, let's wrap things up there. So next time, I guess we're talking about the beginning of this next year of the AIOC. I assume. I haven't written anything down on the schedule past this episode, but one would presume that's what comes next.
And he's Devin, and to close y'all off with a little fun fact. Did you know that Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Tainted Love are the 2 oldest songs known to man? Thank you. Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.